For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
I rise to nominate Kevin McCarthy for Speaker of the House.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I think we have three objectives this Congress, three fundamental things we have to get done in the 118th Congress. First, pass the bills that fix the problems. In 2 years' time, we have a border that is no longer a border. We have a military that can't meet its recruitment goals. We have bad energy policy, bad education policy, record spending, record inflation, record debt, and a government that has been weaponized against we the people, against the very people we represent. So we need to pass legislation to address all that. And I hope my Democrat colleagues will join me. I really do. But I have my doubts. And if they don't, and if Chuck Schumer says, no, we're not going to take up that legislation that we pass, and if Joe Biden won't sign it, so be it. They'll have to answer to the people in 2024. Second, we can never, ever let a bill like the one that passed 12 days ago, $1.7 trillion spent, we can never, ever let that kind of legislation pass again. We have to pass a budget that makes sense, that's good common sense, then do the 12 appropriation bills that recognize it's the people's money, not ours, and send it to the Senate, and then stand firm on that legislation. And again, if they won't take it up and Joe Biden won't sign it, we can stand firm on a CR or something. We can have that fight, but we are not going to have what took place a week and a half ago ever happen again. And then finally, third, and this is important, we got to do the oversight, do the investigations. We have to do the oversight and the investigations that need to be done. This idea that bureaucrats who never put their name on a ballot but think they run the country, who have assaulted our constituents' First Amendment liberties, they need to be held accountable. That has to happen. We need to do it. We need to do it in a way that's consistent with the Constitution, but we need to do it vigorously and aggressively. That is part of our duty as members of this body. To my friends here on this side of the aisle, I would just say this. The differences we may have, the differences between Joyce and Jordan or Biggs and Bacon, they pale in comparison to the differences between us and the left, which now unfortunately controls the other party. So we had better come together and fight for these key things, these three things. That's what the people want us to do. And I think Kevin McCarthy is the right guy to lead us. I really do, or I wouldn't be standing up here giving this speech. I came in with Kevin. We came in the same time 16 years ago. We haven't always agreed on everything, but I like his fight. I like his tenacity, and I like it. I remember Kevin told me, I actually wrote about this in a book. I remember Kevin told me, he said, when the toughest times in life are when you get knocked down, the question is, can you come back? And I've always seen him be able to do that. We need to rally around him, come together, and deal with these three things, because this is what the people sent us here to do. My favorite scripture verse is 2 Timothy 4:7. Paul's the old guy giving advice to the young guy, and he says, fight the good fight, finish the course, keep the faith. I like the verse because it's a verse of action. Fight, finish, keep. Not wimpy words, words that I think fit America. That's what the American people want us to do. They want us to fight for the things they care about and they elected us to do. And we should all remember, only about 12,000 people have ever had the opportunity to do what we're doing today, sit in this body, serve in this Congress. It is a privilege. It is an opportunity. We owe it to them, the American people, the good people of this great country, to step forward, to come together, get a speaker elected so we can address these three things. I hope you'll vote for Kevin McCarthy, and that's why I'm proud to nominate him for Speaker of the House.
My time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would just say that the document that launched this experiment in freedom we call America, the Declaration of Independence, talks about all are created equal, endowed by our Creator with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think it's interesting. I think we all probably think it's the order the founders placed the rights they chose to mention. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You can't pursue happiness. You can't chase down your goals and dreams if you first don't have freedom. And you don't have freedom, true liberty, unless government protects your most fundamental right, your right to live, your right to breathe, your right to life. That's what this legislation is about, protecting the most innocent, the most vulnerable's right to life. I urge a yes vote and hope this thing passes unanimously. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 5, the previous question is ordered on the bill. The question is on engrossment and third reading.
To vote no, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from New York reserved. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Madam Speaker, what purpose? Says it right in the title, expressing the sense of Congress condemning the recent attacks on pro-life facilities, groups, and churches. Over 100 churches and pro-life facilities have been attacked in the last 7 months. Over 100. That's all this resolution. I don't know. Republicans condemn violence every time it happens. We condemn it when it happens to abortion clinics. We condemn it when it happens to churches. We condemn it when it happens to pro-life centers. We condemn it when it happened in the summer of 2020 all over the country. We condemned it when it happened on January 6th. We condemn it every single time. This is just highlighting what has happened in the last 7 months with churches and pro-life centers around the country. That's simple. I wouldn't know why this should be unanimous. I recognize my friend, the sponsor of this great legislation from Louisiana, for 3 minutes.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chairman Jim Jordan. I rise today to speak in favor of my common sense legislation, the House concurrent resolution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to read what the resolution says. That Congress condemns recent attacks, over 100 of them in the last 7 months, on pro-life pregnancy centers and churches. Condemns recent attacks of vandalism, violence, and destruction against pro-life facilities, groups, and churches. Second, recognizes the sanctity of life, the important role pro-life facilities, groups, and churches play in supporting pregnant women, infants, and families. And 3, calls upon the Biden administration to use all appropriate law enforcement authorities to uphold public safety and protect the rights of pro-life facilities, groups, and churches. That's all it says. This is as apple pie as it gets. The hundreds of churches and crisis pregnancy centers that have been attacked in the last 7 months, this resolution says, Biden administration, use the FACE Act, which you've said applies not just to pro-abortion clinics, but also to pro-life crisis pregnancy centers. Use that to make sure we can stop this stuff from happening in the future. We condemn all violence every time it happens. Here's what's interesting. The violence against the abortion, that's been cited by the other side, against abortion clinics and people associated with them, guess what? Those individuals were prosecuted, and we support that. What we want to know is why. Why 100, with 100 attacks, over 100 attacks, why hasn't the Justice Department, to my knowledge, used the FACE Act to prosecute anybody? Why? Oh no, they say there's no political nature at the Justice Department now, there's no weaponization. Really? Because it sure looks like there's a conflict here. Sure looks like there's a double standard here. This resolution is as basic as it gets. I urge support. Hope this thing passes unanimously. And with that, we yield back to
people. I yield back.
The gentleman from New York reserves. The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would just point out the minority leader said their position is Roe v. Wade. Their position is real simple, and it's real radical. Their position is you should be able to take the life of an unborn child right up until their birthday. And then, as Governor Northam has said, even after their birthday. And that's what this bill seeks to stop and make sure doesn't happen. So that's as radical as you can get, taking the life of unborn children right up to their birthday, and then, as Governor Northam has pointed out, even after that. We want to make sure that even after that part never happens, because we believe life is precious and life is sacred. And I would yield now to one of the authors of this, co-sponsor of this legislation, the gentle lady from the state of Florida, Ms. Kamick. 3 minutes.
The gentlewoman from Florida is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in strong support of H.R. 26, the Born Alive.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members
From
have...
Ohio.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and to insert extraneous material on H.R. 26.
Without objection.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of H.R. 26, the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. In simple terms, life is precious, life is sacred, all life, and we think including unborn children. But that's not what this legislation is about. This legislation is about those kids who were born alive, making sure they get protected. For over 40 years, the decision in Roe v. Wade, as Justice Alito has stated, inflamed debate and deepened division over the issue of abortion in this country. We've seen that play out over the last year. But what should be undisputed is the care of a child who is born alive after an attempted abortion. Unfortunately, as evidenced by comments from prominent Democrats, not everyone believes that a child born alive should be protected. We all know in 2019, then Governor Northam of the state of Virginia stated this: the infant would be delivered, the infant would be kept comfortable, the infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired, and then a discussion would ensure between the physicians and the mother. I mean, think about that. It's not just anybody saying that's the governor of one of our largest states. The cavalier attitude he displayed towards human life is just wrong. H.R. 26 would require healthcare practitioners to give the same level of care to a child born alive after an abortion or an attempted abortion as a child at that same gestational age. Work to save the kid's life. Work to help that newborn. It would also require the immediate transfer of the surviving infant to a hospital. This legislation requires healthcare practitioners or other employees to report any violations of this provision to state or federal law enforcement for criminal prosecution. In addition, H.R. 26 provides the mother of an abortion survivor with a civil right of action against a healthcare practitioner who fails to provide the required level of care. It is simple. Infants born alive following an abortion are kids. They're children. All newborns deserve the same level of care. In the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers declared that it was life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are the unalienable rights bestowed on us by our Creator. Congress has a duty to protect these fundamental rights. This should be an easy vote, I think, for all members. And I want to thank my colleagues, Representative Ann Wagner and Kat Cammack, for their diligent work on this legislation, and I urge all members to support it. And with that, we reserve our time.
The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and to insert extraneous material on House Concurrent Resolution 3.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, members of the House, the FACE Act prohibits threats of force, obstruction, and property damage intended to interfere with reproductive health care services. Let me just go over that again. Prohibits threats of force, obstruction, and property damage intended to interfere with reproductive health care services. The Justice Department has said this act is not just about abortions, but applies as well to pro-life, I'm quoting, pro-life pregnancy counseling services and other pregnancy support facilities providing reproductive health care. So it applies across the board. Now here's the problem. On May 8th, 2022, Mother's Day, activists targeted a pro-life nonprofit center in Madison, Wisconsin, setting it ablaze and vandalizing it with the words, "If abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either." On June 3rd, 2022, left-wing anti-life activists targeted the Capitol Hill Crisis Pregnancy Center, throwing red paint on the door, eggs in the window, and spray painting the building with "Jane Says Revenge." On June 25th, 2022, in Longmont, Colorado, vandals graffitied and set fire to the Life Choices Free Pregnancy Center. And this has happened dozens and dozens and dozens of times all across the country. What's the Justice Department done? To my knowledge, no one. No one has been prosecuted under the FACE Act. Not one single person to my knowledge. But if you're a pro-life activist and you're praying outside an abortion clinic like Mark Houck, guess what happens to you? FBI kicks in your door, arrests you, puts you in handcuffs, and does it in front of your wife and 7 children. That's what happens. So we want this. Look, we don't want violence anywhere. As Mr. Cicilline said in 1 minute, we don't want any violence anywhere. But let's not have this double standard. Not to mention this. Think about what happened after the Dobbs decision was leaked. The leaked draft of that opinion. You had activists protesting at every well, not everyone, because only the conservative justices' names were doxed and information put out there. You had protests at their place in direct violation of a statute, 18 U.S.C. 1507. You're not supposed to be protesting, interfering when a decision is pending in front of a Supreme Court justice's home. Direct violation of the statute, and again, nothing happened. And that situation, as we all know, got real serious with the assassination attempt on Justice Kavanaugh. So this resolution is straightforward. What has happened literally now at hundreds of crisis pregnancy centers and churches around the country this past year is just flat out wrong. And this is a resolution that says we appreciate the good work that happens at crisis pregnancy centers where they take in women, where they help them and help that unborn child. Make sure that that unborn child gets to experience the gift of life. The sanctity of life is what this is all about. And so I want to commend my colleague and friend, Mr. Johnson from the great state of Louisiana, for this resolution, and the people across the country who volunteer and who work every day at these centers to help these ladies who are in a tough situation. And with that, I reserve the balance of our time.
Gentleman from Ohio reserved. The gentleman from...
Privilege to yield 3 minutes to the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Mr. Jordan of Ohio.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, since Joe Biden took office, 5 million illegal border crossers encountered, 2 million illegal aliens released into the country, another 2 million, over 370,000 unaccompanied alien children have been encountered on the border, and the Biden administration has lost track of 85,000 kids. 85,000 of that number, and nearly 200 on the terrorist watch list have been encountered on our border, and at midnight tonight it gets worse. It gets worse tonight. And here's the kicker. It's all been done intentionally. Day one, January 20th, 2021, Joe Biden said, no more wall, no more remain in Mexico. You get to the border, you get released into the country. Well, Shazam, everyone's going to come. And that's exactly what's happened. They're all coming, and tonight it gets worse. And it was done in premeditated fashion, deliberate fashion, purposeful. It was all done intentionally, which is I cannot figure out why they would do this. And who seized on this? The cartels. They're making tons of money exploiting people, exploiting kids. It's terrible. This bill, strongest immigration enforcement legislation in modern times, does all kinds of good things on E-Verify, visa overstay, parole authority, the Flores decision, unaccompanied alien children, the asylum reforms. But the best part of this bill, the key component of this bill, is where we say, if you come to our country, you will get to, according to the law, file your asylum claim. We're going to follow the law. But you will be detained or you will be returned while your claim is adjudicated. We change the incentive. If you don't do that, you never solve this problem. That's what this legislation does. And I want to thank the leadership of our conference, the speaker, the leader, the whip, the conference chair. I want to thank the staff. Andrea Loving and her staff did an amazing job. I want to thank Mr. Biggs, Mr. Bentz, Mr. Roy, Mr. Tiffany, Mr. Calvert, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Carter, Moran, and Chairman Green, and Mr. Diaz-Balart, who sponsored the legislation. But the guy who deserves the most thanks is the chairman of the subcommittee on immigration. Without his work, without his effort, and how he stuck to this issue and got it done, this doesn't happen. This is a good day for the country. Let's hope the Senate will take up this bill after we pass it, because this is the only thing that will help stop the craziness that now for 28 months has been going on our southern border. With that, I yield back.
For 2 minutes.
I think
the gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. Look, the fiscal year ends in 36 hours. This bill funds the government. We have a $2 trillion deficit, $33 trillion debt. This bill cuts spending. We have a border that's wide open. This bill secures the border. 3 simple, common sense things. But the most important of those 3 is the one that Mr. Diaz-Balart was just talking about, the border situation. 2021 was the highest number on record for illegal migrants entering the year. Highest year on record until 2022. And that was the highest year on record until this year. That's how bad this is. And here's the important point. It's not just conservatives. It's not just Republicans talking about securing the border. The mayor of New York said the migrant crisis will destroy New York City. Everyone in the country knows what needs to be done. This bill does it in a common sense way, reasonable cuts in spending to deal with the huge deficit we got, but most importantly, addresses the most pressing issue we have. The most pressing issue in the country today is the border situation. And everyone in the country knows it, it seems, except Democrats in the United States Congress. I urge a yes vote.
The gentleman yields back.